What is up, Rave Raid fam? Welcome to another episode of the Rave Raid podcast with your host, Tyler Hardy. And as always, I just want to take a moment to express my overwhelming love and gratitude for each and every single one of you guys who tune in on a daily and weekly basis to talk all things Rave Raid, personal development, spirituality, biohacking, psychedelics, everything that we talk about on this podcast, all with the intention to help you become the most self-actualized and self-loved version of yourself. So then that way you can share your greatest gift with the world because it needs it now more than ever. And so the thing that I want to talk about today is what I do when I feel off. Because I think what happens to a lot of people is they are doing really good for one reason or another. They're doing great with a routine or a habit or something like that. And then something happens, like the routine changes, they get distracted, someone pulls them out of their flow, whatever it is, it causes them to have this regression, and it can happen really quickly and very easily. Just like building a habit is very easy to do as well, a positive habit. It's one of those things where, humans are creatures of habit, and the more that we, do something, the more repetition we build, the more we build that neural circuitry to keep doing things. So then that way we're teaching our body how to do it, essentially better than our mind can do it. And that's how a habit is formed. That's how we know how to drive effortlessly now, because we drive every single day, and our body actually knows how to drive a car better than our mind does at this point. So it's a perfect example. With enough repetition, you can make anything into a lasting habit. But what I want to talk about today is when you're not feeling great, or when you start to kind of slide off a little bit, how you can gain more awareness to recognize that it's happening and getting yourself back on track. And I'll explain kind of some of the things that I do, and I'll give you a good working example. So basically, this past week, I ate something that had a lot of lectins in it. And for those of you that don't know what lectins are, they're a protein that's found on some plants that are actually really harmful for human consumption. And it causes a lot of issues in regards to your digestive health, and it can affect your other organs and stuff like that too. And I just ended up eating some food that had lectins in it, and it made me feel really sick, and it kind of has thrown me off a little bit for the past few days. And I feel my body kind of regenerating and getting back to normal. But what I want to get at with this is, if someone pulls you out of your flow, or you have date night, or you eat unhealthy food one time, or you don't get to do your normal habits or patterns, or you have an emergency come up and it throws you out of your flow, the thing that's going to help you keep progressing forward no matter what's going on in your external reality is having a checklist of things that you ask yourself, like an internal audit essentially, of things that you can ask yourself. Am I doing this? Am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing here? Is this happening? Is this not happening? And it'll help you with realizing what things are taking up a lot of your energy, which things are keeping you stuck in patterns that you don't necessarily want to be in. And that's the true way to actually make lasting change in your life, or get yourself back on track, is to have awareness, which we live in a world where most people have really poor awareness around their ability to look at themselves and self-reflect and internalize and look at things that are keeping them from where they want to go. Because oftentimes oftentimes the truth, it can be painful to look at sometimes. And sometimes it's hard, or the ego makes it seem like it's hard to look at the parts of ourselves that are keeping us limited, or keeping us stuck, or keeping us not performing at our greatest capacity. And when you can start looking at that truth and being honest with yourself, is when you can really, incrementally keep making huge improvements and strides and quantum leaps towards what it is that you're wanting to create for yourself. And so, not feeling super hot, I realized that I hadn't been cold plunging. I wasn't doing very good breathwork sessions. I wasn't doing it first thing when I woke up in the morning. I've slept in a little bit more than what I normally do. And I started realizing that those are the things that are making a difference in how I'm feeling overall. And that, when you have that self-audit, you can really get to the bottom of the things that are keeping you from where you want to go, or the habits that are keeping you in that good place that you're not doing. So, for example, I woke up this morning and I was like, okay, I'm going to have a great day today. It's Monday. It's time to have a great week. Going to perform well on the podcast. Going to make sure that everything goes really well with Rave Raid. We're seeing some really good momentum. A lot of good things are happening, and I need to be at the top of my game. And so I started asking myself, okay, are you doing breath work? Okay, I got back and did my breath work and meditation, and I did, 3 or 4 extra rounds of breath work today because I really was like having a hard time getting back to that normal space that I like to get into before I start my day. Then I got there. Then I went and hopped in the cold plunge. Then I immediately like didn't take any time to, recover or relax. I just got straight into the podcast. So I was just in a cold plunge tank like 7 minutes ago. And it's one of those things where you start grabbing hold of your habits and your actions, it's going to put you back on track really quickly. And even when you're not feeling perfect, you're still getting the things done that you know that you need to be getting done, and you're not making excuses and allowing things to happen. Because far too often what I see happen is this, and this has happened so many times in my life that I can speak on it, very clearly, is you're doing really good, you're doing well, and then you get invited to go out, or you get invited to go to a dinner, or you eat like some inflammatory foods that aren't what you normally eat. You forget to take your supplements. You go to bed late. Your sleep schedule is messed up. And then you have a hard time pinpointing. You don't feel great. You have a hard time pinpointing due to lack of awareness what's causing you to not feel great. And then you start compounding that. You keep making more and more poor decisions for yourself. Oh, I ate bad yesterday. I'm going to eat bad today. Oh, I went to bed late yesterday. My sleep schedule's messed up. I'm going to stay up and watch this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And it keeps you stuck in that pattern. Whereas if you have this framework of what you reside in on a normal basis, and you create a habit around it, it makes it so much easier to get back on track. It makes it effortless because it feels more weird to do the things you shouldn't be doing than it does just to do the things that may be more uncomfortable but are really good for you, i.e. jumping into a cold plunge or sitting in the sauna or going to the gym. You feel weird if you don't do those things. And so I hop back in. I feel great now. Obviously, it'll be a multi-day process to get myself like back to peak shape, but it's one of those things where like it's taking steps in the right direction and compounding those steps. So what I want you to take away from this episode is, how many times in your life have you been in a place where you've been doing good, or you're doing well with something, you're doing well with a habit or routine or a new initiative that you're taking on, and then you get distracted by a person, you get distracted by a thing, you get distracted by something that's out of your normal routine, and it starts this downward spiral of habits for you. And you keep taking yourself away from what it is that you desire for yourself out of peer pressure, or not feeling great physically because you ate something you shouldn't have eaten, or what have you, whatever it is that's keeping you from where you want to go. Like, how many times have you allowed that to happen, where one thing leads to another, and before you know it, one slip up is weeks worth of regression, or months worth of regression, or even years worth of regression. That's how serious this stuff can get if you're not, aware of the causation of the effect of how you feel and how you perform on a daily basis with everything that you're doing. The inverse is very true though too, because when you are hyper aware, the things that will get you back on track. And that's why I'm a huge advocate of the Ascended Raver protocol that we made here at RAVER, because I guarantee you that if you do those things listed in that program, you're going to continue to see improvements in your health. And if you notice things that are keeping you from that, you're going to jump right back into that routine, and that's going to become like your standard, operating mode of network, and it's going to keep you, in alignment with what you're wanting to create for yourself. And so I just want you to ask yourself that question, like if that's ever happened to you. And if so, I'm going to give you a really good solution right now. So I have on my phone, which I don't have with me at the moment, I have a list of things that I ask myself. They're questions. I say, okay, you're not feeling great. Okay, cool. What have you been eating? Is there anything that you've eaten that's been different outside of your normal, food that you normally eat on a daily basis? Oh yeah, well I had this, or oh yeah, I ate some lectins, or I did this. I experimented with a new food to see how my body would react to it. Okay, cool. Well, you're not feeling as good as you normally do, so there's a good chance that food that you ate is not conducive for your, highest frequency. Cool. That answers that question. So we cut that out immediately. Next question. Who are you spending your time around? Is there someone or something that's getting more of your energy than what it needs to be? Has there been any changes around the people that you've been around consistently as well? Because every interaction that you have, completely changes the dynamic of your mindset. It changes the dynamic of your day to day. So sometimes there's people that come in that, contribute to that. Sometimes there's people that come into it that suck energy from you. And it may not be anything intentional, but it could be one of those things where it's just inadvertent and, who they are, or they're reaffirming a past version of yourself because they haven't made the changes that they need to make. And so gaining a lot of awareness around the people that you're spending your time around is a really big one too, in regards to like your energy and how you feel. And then you ask, okay, have I been sticking to my habits and routines? And so have I been getting in the cold plunge? Have I been meditating? Have I been doing my breath work? Have I been, taking my supplements and my RAVER? Have I been doing all of those things? Oh no, okay, well I skipped drinking my RAVER one day. Okay, there's a good indicator right there. Okay, I skipped the cold plunge because I just didn't feel like it. Okay, that's another indicator right there. So you almost think of it like it's on like a point system, and you're like, okay, well, those 4 things are keeping me from feeling optimized. I'm going to put those 4 things right back in and see if that makes a big difference for me. And more often than not, it does. And so having like that default, basis of things that you can rely on to keep yourself feeling optimized is what's going to help you stay consistent. And consistency is what makes people great. Consistency is what gets you what you want in your life. And things don't just happen overnight. It happens through consistent and persistent work and dedication towards what it is that you're wanting to create. And so I keep asking myself these questions, and I start auditing myself. And you can make the questions anything that you want, whatever it is that, you want to ask yourself. One thing, now it's almost like a habit. It's very habitual, and I'm very much more aware of that. But when I was struggling, when I would say I was like more depressed, and not feeling as great and optimal, this was like seriously like a life changer for me and a game changer, because of the fact that it made me start becoming more reflective on the things that were keeping me from feeling the way that I wanted to feel, and made me start paying more attention to those things. Because it's amazing to me like how many people I know that like don't think that food affects the way that their body feels. Like, and I get it. I used to be one of those people for a long time. I just didn't have any sort of education or proper, awareness around, how food affects our body, and kind of almost thinking like it affects everyone else but not me. And when you start asking yourself the questions and you start pinpointing and getting points of reference for, oh yeah, you know what? I did notice a little bit more inflammation when we went out and had dinner that one night. I wonder what it was. And then guess what? You start getting those answers. You start seeing the correlation towards, oh, every time I eat an inflammatory oil, then, I notice my hands are a little bit more inflamed. I know that my neck is more inflamed. I notice that my knees are not feeling as good as they normally do. I notice that my brain just doesn't seem to be operating the way that it normally does. And that's when we start making changes. That's when we start seeing like, oh, I want to feel good all the time. Like, that's borderline torturous to keep doing this to myself and putting bad things in my body, because that's a reflection of how I feel about myself. And that's the biggest thing, is like when you love yourself and you're someone who genuinely wants the best for yourself, like it's so easy to say no to the things that are not good for you. It's so easy to say no to the people that are not good for you and conducive for you. It's so easy to, not take up those situations or those experiences or go do those things that everyone else is doing to, damage and destroy themselves when, you love yourself. It doesn't vibrationally match, and you like literally can't tolerate it. And so what I'm getting at here is, it's really, really important to have the awareness to self-reflect with yourself and audit yourself internally. Like, you're not feeling optimal, like on cloud 9, super energized, focused, clear, alert, in your flow, in your passion, then there's probably something outside of you that's causing that sort of disconnect. Whether it's the food you're eating, the lack of exercise you're giving yourself, the lack of vitamin D and sunlight exposure, not doing hard things on a daily basis like sauna, cold plunge, doing those things, not supplementing correctly, you name it. You start asking people like some basic questions like that, you can get to the root cause of why they're not feeling great, and it's one of those things where, it can easily be changed, but there's got to be awareness around the situation. Because I can't tell you how many times I've talked to people and I've pointed out to them, hey, this is probably what's causing you to feel this way. Like people that are close to me in my life, hey, I probably wouldn't drink that type of water, even things that simple. And it's one of those things where, until that person, those people realize like what it is that is causing it, the causation, they have to realize it for themselves. They can't make the change, and that's one thing I've learned as I've gotten older is just like, give input where it's asked for, and help as much as you can, but don't be attached to the outcome of their growth and progression, because you have to realize it for yourself. And there's been many times in my life where I haven't realized certain causations towards the effect that I was feeling in my life. And it was one of those things where I had to realize it for myself through your own experience, through your own eyes. You have to experience and know for yourself what it is. And that tends to be one of those things where it's a lot of being rooted in ego and not wanting to listen to others. And others have a lot of valuable information when you're actually being discerning of what it is that they're sharing with you and picking up on what it is that actually might be helpful for your overall well-being, especially when you start getting around more people, that have your best interest in mind, that do love you. They want what's best for you. So you can, kind of let that guard down and really start to, take it in, the information that they have to share with you, and take what's useful and don't use what isn't. And so what I would like you to do as an action item, because I'm really big on action items and implementation of what we're talking about in these podcasts, is I think it would be really powerful for you to create a little checklist for yourself of what things could be keeping you from where you're wanting to be, and consistent habitual patterns that you might be carrying out. And ask yourself those questions. Like, if you wake up one morning and you're not feeling good and you're like, oh, I just feel like shit today. Okay, cool. What foods am I eating? What people have I spent time around? Am I getting adequate sleep? Am I using substances and stimulants to push myself forward? That's not real energy. And that's one thing I'm big on too, just in regards to like the whole energy drink supplement space. Is like, people who are healthy don't need that stuff at all. And we'll continue to debunk that as we go. But back to it, like, start asking yourself these questions. Am I supplementing correctly? Am I drinking good quality water? Am I meditating? Am I sticking to my habits? Am I doing the challenging things that I know that I need to be doing? Am I avoiding things? Am I oversexing myself? That's another common one, especially for men. I feel like is, if you oversex yourself, you absolutely destroy your drive and your creative power. And so that's another big one. I'll probably do an entire episode just on the importance of like sexual transmutation and semen retention and stuff like that, and my personal experience with it. But asking yourself these questions, getting real with yourself, getting honest with yourself, is going to free you. It is going to liberate you. It is going to put you in a place where you are able to actually make the changes that you want to make, because if you are not aware of the changes that need to happen, you are not going to make those changes. Awareness is the greatest gift that you can have in this life. It's the greatest skill that you can develop for yourself. And it's a skill that you can develop. It's not something that you're born with. It's something that you develop. It's something that you work on through meditative practice, through becoming the observer and not the person actually playing out the role that you're carrying out in your life, and just seeing things for what they are, and looking for more truth and finding more truth in yourself, so you can see it easily in others and in situations in your life, so that way you can make decisions that are, in accordance with your highest good. And that right there is the key to getting where you want to go. But really, asking yourself those things. And the thing that I suggest that you do is, when you have that moment of honesty with yourself, not to be mad or angry or feel shameful. We all make mistakes. We all don't do everything perfectly. It's just about doing as much as we can right, and compounding those things on a daily basis. So then that way, you start to see that lasting change, and then you start creating that positive feedback loop inside of yourself. And you're like, okay, when I do these things, I get more of what I want. This is awesome. I prefer to feel like this versus using these substances or eating these shitty foods or being around these shitty people and that are detracting from my life experience. And I would rather do these things. It brings me more peace. It brings me more happiness. It brings me more fulfillment. Whatever it is for you, you start creating that new neural circuitry in your brain. You start creating that positive feedback loop. And before you know it, it's what you want to be doing. That thing that you avoided, the thing that you pushed away and ignored, becomes the thing that you want to do. I like jumping in the cold plunges. I like podcasting. I like, doing the hard things on a daily basis that challenge me to be a better version of myself, because I'm addicted to the growth, because I know that everything that I want is, down the road. It's here in the now, but it's down the road through all the personal development and the journey that I'm about to go on, that I'm going on. And the same for you applies. Nothing that you want and that you aspire for is in the past, because if it was in the past, you'd already have it. And if you've lost something that's valuable to you, you can always get it back, always. And so, but the key is the awareness. That's the differentiator between people who get what they want out of their life and the people that don't. And it's deep, it's multi-layered, it has a lot of facets to it. It's not just, I'm aware of what's going on around me. There's deeper truths inside of every single thing when you start taking good care of yourself and becoming aware of the truth inside of yourself, so that way you can spot it and detect it in other things. And so there's so much complexity to this human experience. It keeps going deeper and deeper and deeper, the more and more that I keep progressing. So just know that wherever you're at is completely perfect for what you're meant to be experiencing. I'm just trying to give you a tool to increase your awareness, so then that way you can become aware of what people, places, things, experiences, and substances might be keeping you from consistently being great. Not just great sometimes, not just great on occasion, but great on a daily basis. So in that way, that becomes your standard way of being. So then that way you can actually consistently create the things that you want to create in your life. And that's really all I've got for this episode. I just want you to really take this information, if it resonates for you and feels true to you, and implement it into your life, and ask yourself those questions we talked about earlier in this episode about, when something's not going the way you want it to, you're not feeling optimized or feeling great, start looking at every single thing that you're doing. Your habits and what you're doing on a consistent basis is going to unlock the answer to your liberation and your freedom in all ways, shapes, and forms. And the more that you start, infusing that awareness with a belief system of self-love and worthiness, that right there is like the magic equation for achieving your greatest potential, is awareness and belief systems that you are worthy of whatever it is that you want in your life and you desire for yourself, and that it is possible. Those two things mashing together and synergistically coming together is what's going to create your greatest potential. So be sure to integrate something that felt true to you in this episode, so then that way you're not just taking in this information and not applying it. Because if you don't apply it, then there's no point in you listening to this, because this is all about actually making that shift in perception and seeing, the world through a different lens. And that's what we're here to do. And that's what RAVER is all about. And that's why we're going to continue to be the fastest growing movement in EDM and eventually in the world, because we're about human optimization, and we're about helping the world discover more truth within themselves, so then that way they can see the truth that's going on around them. So without further ado, guys, my name is Tyler Hardy. I hope you guys have an amazing day. We'll talk to you soon. Peace.